Back in E4201, no one told little girls not to get in an ox cart with the first man who offers you a sweet roll. I mean, things could have gone very differently for me. Hi, I'm Sofie of Windhelm, and my adopted father was the last Dragonborn of Skyrim. My parents died when I was really young. I sold flowers in Windhelm to try and get by. It wasn't a great business model in a frozen wasteland, but you do what you have to do when you're an orphan. One day the city was buzzing. It was buzzing because we'd heard that the Dragonborn had returned. And I didn't know who he was at first. He approached me and I was hoping to make a sale, and he asked me my story. And then he adopted me right away. He adopted me immediately. The Civil War really expedited the adoption process. There was no process. And he'd recently become Thane of Whiterun. He had a home there. He offered me a place to stay. But I had to get there on my own. And there were so many red flags right away. But, you know, by the 9, it was a roof over my head in a really, really scary time. Eventually, he adopted my sister, married my mother, Isolde. She was a merchant from Whiterun. Public perception of Papa was that he was this hero of the prophecy. You know, he defeated Alduin. He ended the Civil War. I mean, he was a family man. He was the head of the Companions. He was the Archmage of Winterhold, and he was the head of the Thieves Guild. I mean, he was a nightingale. He was in the Dark Brotherhood. He was a werewolf. He was a champion of all 16 Daedric gods. I mean, come on, Hermaeus Mora, you're the god of knowledge, and you didn't know that he sold his soul to 3 other gods? I mean, Papa didn't have a double life like most people think. He had a 24-point double life. I'm not trying to topple a hero. I just want to give some context to a man who was undoubtedly a force for good in the world, in Skyrim. He never spoke about himself. He saved countless lives, and I don't think we ever really knew him. He didn't talk. I mean, maybe it was the unspeakable things that he did and the terrifying things that he saw. Yeah! He was a mystery. He could be strict or demanding.
Yes? Yes, Pa.
Yes, my love? What do you need? Yes, my love? What do you need?
But it wasn't until we moved to Lakeview Manor that things got strange.
You see this patio right here? In my front yard? I built it.
A lot of people don't believe me when I say this, but Papa never actually spoke. I would get a headache and I would know what he was thinking.
Papa, you're back. Can I get a few gold to spend? Please? You're the best. Thanks.
I've never seen his face. He wore a helmet all the time. I think he slept like that. He had this odd habit of giving us gifts, which was nice, but then he would go into the drawers that my sister and I shared and take them back and then give them to us again. It was just bizarre.
Wow, really? What do you get? This is great. Wow, thanks.
We were always way more invested in the relationship than he was. I mean, Lucy and we tried to get him involved in our games, but he took them way too seriously.
Arr!
We tried to, be excited about life, but I don't know.
Mama took me to the market. There were lots of pies and cakes there. She said she'd show me how to bake one.
Mama especially. I mean, maybe she saw something in him that none of us saw. I think she thought she could change him.
Goodbye, my love.
He was frighteningly strong. Papa's eating habits were strange. One time I came home and saw him in the foyer. He ate 60 cheese wheels, one after the other. Of all of the things that I saw as a child, that's the one that haunts me. We had horses. As a kid, a lot of them died, but the one that stuck around was terrifying. He was extremely violent. Not to us, but to other people. He would come home with his sword just covered in blood. I mean, he carried witches' heads, like a witch's head in his pocket. Our house used to get attacked a lot by bandits. And I mean, the bandits, they didn't know who lived there. They just saw a mansion in the woods and they would come by and he would just brutalize them. He could be really cruel. I mean, he met dozens of orphans. He had 6 homes, housecarls in each. He could have adopted all of them, and he chose not to.
I'm sick of sleeping outside with the horses. I want a real home, real parents, not this.
Sometimes I wonder who had it better, us or them or the orphans in Riften. He had an entire wing of the house just dedicated to storing weapons. I always kind of wondered where they all came from. They couldn't have all been gifts. He had an entire wedding set on a mannequin, and I asked him where it was from, and he never answered.
I heard you were at the wedding of the Emperor's cousin. In Solitude. Gods, that must have been horrible.
Being an adventurer, he was gone for weeks at a time, and we'd just be at home with Mama. I think it was better. It gave us a bit of a break from the horror. It was safe. I mean, there were wolves, but Lydia was there. Mama always had these really interesting items from her business, and I mean, she always had money, and it was weird because Papa would come home and the first thing that he would do is ask her for money. It's just strange because he was the most independently wealthy man in all of Tamriel. I mean, the Empire never really got into the idea of a wealth tax. That's how we would know the trouble would start.
Yes, my love? What do you need? We have a cozy little profit. Here, this is your share, love.
There was a necromancer who lived at the bottom of the hill, and Papa would kill them, and then another one would just appear. And one time I asked Mama, why don't we just destroy the altar? And she said that it was a non-destructible environment, and I still don't understand what that means. Yeah, I mean, we lived at Lakeview Manor for 2 years, and one time Lucy and I were playing the alchemy lab, and she found a chest filled with skooma. I mean, filled with skooma. He had us in Dare, with the shirts, LAPD. I don't even know where he got the shirts, but he had us in Dare. So naturally I asked Mama what it was about, and she told me he was keeping it off the streets, which, I don't know. I think she was in denial about it, but to have that just in our home unlocked, I mean, it's like giving a child a crossbow with exploding bolts. When I was about 13, that's when Lucy and I started taking Skooma. It was social at first with our friend Braith, but next thing we knew, Lucia was falling around Khajiit caravans. Like, she installed a mod so that she could make Skooma at Papa's alchemy lab. I had to stop talking to Mama when it became really clear she wasn't gonna leave. Last I heard, Lucia was living in a skooma den somewhere in the wilderness. I left Skyrim for Cyrodiil when I was 19. I wanted to go somewhere where nobody cared about the Dragonborn. And I mean, it seemed so cosmopolitan at first, but the Almiri Dominion was just still really very prevalent. And like, not that I have a problem with elves, but I needed to go. To say that it was an adjustment, a big adjustment, is a bit of an understatement.
Hey Sophie, did you get that notification?
Yes?
Did you get that notification from IT? We're all supposed to update our passwords.
Need something?
Yeah, IT, they need us to update all of our passwords.
Have you seen those warriors from Hammerfell? They have curved swords. Curved swords. I mean, come on.
We know.
Sophie, have you thought about going into therapy or seeking somebody out?
I mean, it is ridiculous. Like, you can't find a good therapist in the skeever hole of the city. I'm grateful for the childhood I had. I mean, I had a roof over my head. I had a family. Not everyone can say that. I mean, I'm acutely aware of the fact that having a demigod as a father is a privilege. I don't want to seem ungrateful. Like, just, Mama, Papa, if you're watching this, just know that, I don't know how they would watch. I mean, they don't have cable. They don't even have TV. Mama, Papa, if you're watching this, just know that I love you and I'm grateful, and I know that you weren't ready to have a child, and I hope that when I have kids, I'll be more equipped and I can give them the life that I didn't have. Maybe I'm the next Dragonborn and I don't even know it.